Here we go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. ControlTalk, your smart building video cast and podcast for the week ending March 18th, 2018. This is episode 259, where we talk about all things smart controls and smart building controls. It's St. Patrick's Day. Hope everybody had a great day to be green. But hey, what would a Smart Buildings Control Talk show be without the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, your co-host and mine, Kenny Smyers, the control man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. It's great to be here again, as always. And we still haven't had the relief on the weather. We get a balmy 31 degrees here today on St. Patrick's Day. The parade was bitter cold, but it did warm up a little bit, I guess. 31.
Did you go to the parade?
No, I watched a little bit of it. We have a very serious Irish side. My sister's married into the Sieber family. And they this is the big celebration of the year, almost like the Christmas time. They have people from all over Western Pennsylvania come into Pittsburgh. They go to that parade. Then they run out of hotel rooms downtown so they can enjoy themselves and not drive.
Well, yeah. Well, listen. Speaking of Christmas, our show this week, if you had to give it a name, kind of harkens to A Christmas Tale. What was the one that had the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas now, and the ghost of Christmas future? What was that one called? About Scrooge, right? Yeah, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Scrooge, yeah.
So we've got two magnificent guests that are coming on, and I think this week's show is going to be the face or the voice of building automation control systems integrators from the past to the present to the future. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. But Kenny, before we get to that, man, you got a few shout outs, don't you?
I sure do, but that's a nice play on last week's post with Therese Sullivan. Remember, we had Shaking the Value Chains, and we actually had the picture of Ebenezer Scrooge stalking people with his.
Was he a stalker? Was Scrooge a stalker?
No, I guess he wasn't. The ghosts were stalking him with the chains. No.
We all have ghosts stalking us, don't we?
We're not accusing Ebenezer Scrooge of being a stalker. I went one back.
Kenny, I'm telling you what, man, that's going to get all over social media. Ken Smyers.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of a great idea for us in our show. Since you don't give me timeouts and since we don't have any edits, I should get three edit opportunities. I can 1, 2, and 3 show. And that way I can go back and fix it.
I don't know, man, Kenny, the feedback we get, people's favorite part of the show is where either you or I mess up, especially you. They love you getting stumped on vocabulary words. They don't think it's jejune at all when you do that.
Okay. Well, then I'll just jump right ahead here to my...
So, all right, that was your first test. Jejune, what does it mean? Define it. No, looking at Google now.
Jejune, I would say a big deal. Or
No. Jejune is dull, flat, or boring, and you are anything but jejune, my man.
Dull, flat, or boring?
How I've often been described on dates.
I doubt that.
That's why I know the word.
I doubt that. I'm sure you gave every damsel a run for her distress money. No, just kidding. we shouldn't go there, but you did take me back to one of your haunts there when you went to school at Mercer, and there was that famous cemetery there, and you told me that story where you made something happen that you didn't want that to happen, and it ruined your night. But
if you're interested in hearing that, reach out in comments, and maybe I'll tell that story. But it's one of my biggest regrets in life. It had to do with Rose Hill Cemetery, where two of the Allman brothers were buried, Dwayne Allman and Barry Oakley. And it was back in my college days, and let's just say that I squandered a good opportunity. And we'll leave it at that.
All right. We'll transition here. That's a good transition point. The first shout out is to Brett Pascone. Actually, James Mouch. He's the superintendent of building automation at the University of North Florida. And he put an awesome post in LinkedIn where he said, I can't give my employees the pay increases that I'd like to, my controls techs, but what I can do is give them the tools and resources to train, and having a complete BAS system off the net lets the techs answer questions on their own. And it's a very, very good place to work. It's a stress-free place to do experiments, but maybe we'll put a link on the control notes here, because it's a fabulous setup of a building automation system and all the components where they can go in there and they can experiment.
What's this gentleman's name again?
His name is Brett Pascone.
All right, Brett. Hey, Eric Stromquist here. I'm your friendly neighborhood distributor in Florida. So if you need any of those tools or any help, reach out to us at stromquist.com. We would love to help you out. That's in our territory, Kenny.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a shout out to Eric Dunn, who's the Antisis National Sales Director. We have a couple of birthdays. Let's see. We got Annette. Let's see here. Well, we have Richard Satchel for 23 years at Mid-Atlantic Controls. Congratulations. That's some serious time.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And we have we're getting some really good hits about the Master Systems Integrator post that we did. I'm sorry, the technology thing we did with Ray Zimmer and
Ron Zimmer.
Ron Zimmer. Sorry, Ron. And Brad Holt. We got several likes on that on LinkedIn. And then the notifications, we had, they're slipping away here. Come on, Mr. LinkedIn. It's going
Well, while you're waiting for LinkedIn, I want to do a special shout out to Crocodile Dundee Sinclair, our friend from Building Automation Control, AutomatedBuildings.com. Ken Sinclair is down under for a month. And normally he'd be on the show talking about his March issue, but since he's not here, we're going to just say go to AutomatedBuildings.com, check it out, and wish Crocodile Dundee Sinclair the very, very best. I'm sure he's wowing them down there with his Canadian wiles.
I'm sure he is.
Nothing jejune about Ken Sinclair, is there, Kenny?
Jejune. Okay, I like that, huh? Jeez. Anyhow, the birthday was to Anup Patel. He's the Indian business manager at EasyIO Holdings. And congratulations and happy birthday. And basically that's it. We had a bunch of likes on our anniversary. Control Trends, we're
how old are we now, Kenny?
8 years.
8 years. Wow. Wow. We've come a long way. What we ought to do is we ought to go back and we ought to repost our first post. I can't even remember what it was, but I guarantee it was comical. And then I remember when we started the video series, this is before you came on board, and I did the control news of the week. It was kind of comical too. But hey, you know what? You got to start someplace, and I think that's one of the key lessons that I've learned in life is that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, at least at first. So get started, whatever your endeavor is. So that's that. Kenny, let's shake things up this week. Let's just go right into our interviews. Man, this week our guests are going to talk about smart building controls from a unique perspective. We're going to talk about it from what it has been to where it is now to where it's going. So you're not going to want to miss this because we've got two fantastic guests with us today. And Kenny, how about introducing them?
I'd love to, Eric. We have two very well-recognized people in our industry. A young gun, Jason Houck, he's Chief Information Officer at the Panel Shop. We also have Mr. Leroy Walden, he's LLED AP, President and Chief Consultant of High Rose Consultants. Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome, guys.
Glad to be here.
I tell you what, I'm so pumped up about this because Leroy, you and I grew up together in the controls business. Leroy's from Atlanta, ran one of the most successful building automation controls companies, is still successful here in Atlanta. But boy, when you and I and Kenny all got started in the business, I mean, a building automation system, basically, you didn't run electric wires to it, you ran pneumatic tubes to it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, actually control systems made noise back in those days.
They did. And then we went on a little bit further, and then the phrase was, if you didn't wire them up right, the magic smoke came out. But there were black boxes, and that were called black boxes. It was considered, voodoo magic and so on and so forth. So, but then, we got Leroy is going to kind of offer a perspective from there. And then we got Jason Houck, and Jason is arguably one of the brightest guys in the industry when it comes to building automation controls. His company, Helptus Systems, works with other companies to help them with, bringing different silos together, doing very, very sophisticated integration. and Jason got a little bit different start than the rest of us did. So it's going to be interesting where Jason sort of picked up in the business and where it's going now. But Jason, first thing I got to ask you is, I mean, being that you are a controls guru, a master systems integrator, why the title Chief Information Officer?
The title of CIO, we opted to head down that direction because we wanted to be more open for IT departments, right? Get that communication going with directors of IT, company CIOs that were actually going in and integrating their systems. Back in the day, we used to run away from the IT departments and networks and stuff, and nowadays we want to hit those head on and get that conversation going early, because you have conversations like cybersecurity and network operational networks that we have to deal with.
Well, listen, just so you know, of all the people on this call, you are not qualified to talk back in the day. That's reserved for me, because we know about back in the day. So why don't we start back in the day? So, Leroy, if we give our audience a little history, sort of what you saw, because again, when I first met you, we were selling pneumatic controls, and walk our audience a little bit through sort of the evolution of controls, and also with the sort of the perspective of what a systems integrator had to do then, and how that began to change.
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Eric. I got in the industry in 1978, and in 78, as Eric, as you point out, it was basically pneumatic electric controls. Everything was hardwired. You ran pneumatic tubing all over the building, and as I said, control systems made noise, and it sounded like a snake when if you cut a tube, you'd hear a hiss, and you knew you had a problem. And I was really grateful to start in that era, because I got to see the evolution of building controls, all the way from the most basic pneumatic electric systems to the original computer control systems that were based on mini computers. And then when the PC came along, basically it was almost a slam dunk that, building automation systems are going to migrate toward PC. The other thing that I saw happen was more direct digital control, and that back in the day, as I'll use that phrase, back in the day, we did have some electronic and computer-based control, but primarily it was monitoring and set point adjust. We didn't really have any direct application of electronics to where it monitored temperature and changed a valve position or opened and closed a damper or whatever to make the temperature change. Primarily, it was a supervisory type role.
Right. In IT back in that day, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny and Leroy, and this is good education for you, Jason. IT, if somebody said IT to you, you thought of it, and you were thinking about a term like related to a supermodel, like Cindy Crawford is the it girl, right?
Well, the thing you said, Leroy, that touched off one of the coolest things I remember in the early days was diagnostics, troubleshooting a pneumatic system. One of the clever guys, he said that the best troubleshooting device he ever came across was a bottle of cheap perfume, because they would spray it, and everywhere they smelled the cheap perfume, they could detect the leaks, and it wasn't offensive, because they had that real mechanical stuff that had that terrible smell. So if you did use it in your system, and it wasn't a classroom where the teachers were, some area where there was somebody there, they didn't like that residual smell, but nobody ever complained about the perfume. So I thought that was diagnostics back in the old days.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was just above Stone Age, no doubt about it. And Eric, your point about IT, at that point, this was late 70s, early 80s, and so consequently, about the only people that were doing networking, to say, were the government, probably the NSA and others that were able to use Skynet or some kind of a network topology to communicate and or monitor. But as far as the average building, I mean, there was no such thing as the internet. There was definitely no such thing as, and there was not very many wide area networks. If there were anything, it was IBM and their hardwired networks of terminals and mainframe computers and those types of things. And so we also got to experience that evolution and emergence of IT as a major component within buildings. And then following along, probably 5 or 8 years later, after the internet was really popularized, that movement toward internet connected or building to building communications using the internet. So it's been pretty fascinating to watch. You know, one of the things that I was fond of thinking about, you know, my career was kind of in mid-flight in mid 90s. And it was really easy to reflect back that the PC was invented in 1982, but yet by 93 and 94, it was so ubiquitous that we just more or less took for granted that every building system, whether it be lighting control or elevator control, building automation, temperature control, is going to be a PC-based front-end piece of software to operate it. So it was really a quick evolution once the PC was introduced to basically driving that forward. I mean, just like it did with word processing and just basic, you know, administrative duties, it revolutionized, no doubt, building and building controls, you know, all the way along.
Levi, you hit two great transition points, because I think kind of where we want to go is to discuss the master systems integrator. Because first you bring up the point about the buildings. I mean, the reality is our situation is this, you know, is that many buildings were constructed in the early 70s, early 80s, and they were pneumatic. And then we have to take this giant structure, you know, 60 stories with all these mechanical issues and whatever, and then we need to upgrade it. And we turn to Jason and we see, you know, you inherited this. You have to solve this technology-wise. You have to bring a building that was designed when there was no cybersecurity issues, and wasn't even a thought of, because like Leroy just brought out, there were no networks and there was nothing to hack into. So in this incredible evolution and accelerated evolution, we hand you a building that's built in 1972. It's 65 stories high. It's got every possible challenge you got, fire, safety, whatever.
Yeah.
And then where do you begin?
Where we begin as a company is we begin with that operational technology network, that OT network, because like Leroy said, there's no backbone normally in these systems. It was either a main pneumatic trunk or maybe an RS-45 style trunk, or back in the day of the JCI arc nets and stuff like that. But there's no real backbone to bring on each and every lighting system and each and every segregated BMS platform that may reside within that facility, or smart meters or fire monitoring. So that operational technology network, that fiber backbone in a 65-story style building, needs to be put in place. And that's where technologies like Optigo with their switching comes into play, where you can actually very cost effectively run a fiber backbone within a facility. They've got technology where you can essentially almost daisy chain the fiber to an extent up a building. And it becomes very cost effective now to put in a good backhaul network in those facilities.
It's very cool. Well, listen, I want to continue. This is great dialogue because, you know, and Jason, again, Kenny and Leroy and I are all born in the same year, and you know, we kind of hate to admit it, but high technology when we got started was, you know, putting quarters in a payphone, right? So you probably never seen one of those, but I want to ask you guys both questions, because Leroy, again, you know, ran one of the most successful building automation controls companies for years. You know, during the time period he sort of laid out and, you know, hired people and looked for certain skills. And Jason, you're doing that now. So the question I'd ask you, and I'll start with Leroy, is Leroy, outside of somebody know where to buy a bottle of good, cheap perfume, what sort of qualifications do you look for people that you hired to work with you in your automation control department? And then Jason, I'd like to ask you the same question. What are you looking for now in terms of skills?
Great question, Eric. And, you know, the thing that I always looked for were people with innate curiosity and a desire to search for answers, because they ultimately would wind up being the best troubleshooters. And as Jason can attest, that hasn't changed over these years. The building automation or the temperature control guy has to come into a situation where there's no heat, no cooling, no light, you know, this or that or the other, and he has to very quickly assess where the root problem is. It may be in the controls and automation system, but quite often it's in a mechanical system or electrical system or a pumping system or that type of thing. And so what you have to have is you have to have people who are really you know, nimble. They're quick thinkers. and they have a natural curiosity, and they're not satisfied with what may look like to be the apparent answer. And that's just a human characteristic that I always look for. And then the next thing I look for is not only did they have curiosity, but they also had intuition, and they also had an entrepreneurial type mindset where they would understand that it was within them to dig into the details and find out what the solution could be, and then to begin to test in a scientific method, what may be the right things. So it's a lot to ask, but, in today's age, when computers are so prolific and so ubiquitous, and when code is so easy to create, through iPhone or Android apps, or even PC or Mac apps, and people are doing it at a much younger age. So my hope is that we'll begin to see more of those curiosity, hungry people who come along to come in. That's the basic building block, and then, obviously it was always, we had to have someone with a general mechanical aptitude. They had to have the ability to put their hands on things, or whether it be a keyboard or whether it be a set of tools to go out and do things. And then they wanted to really kind of have a service mentality, the innate desire to make better what they find that's wrong, or to be of service to fellow humans or other people. So those are some really key fundamental building blocks that I always look for. And then from there, I felt like if they had those keys, those tools, then we could build within them the skill that they needed. Because and Jason, it hadn't changed. I mean, our guys have to know a lot. They have to know stem to stern, foundation to roof, what's going on in every building and just about every system within that building, because invariably it's up to that controls, automation, and integrator nowadays to make those systems work and perform the way they were designed.
But Leroy, back in the day, true or false, but you probably lean more to mechanical aptitude, right? Understanding the equipment and all. And then, like you said, they had all those other features, and you could teach them the tech part, right? The programming. But if they didn't have the mechanical, at least my experience of back in the day was that was what you led with. The guy understood the equipment, then we could control the equipment.
Well, if they came with that ability, built in, that was a real plus.
That's a bonus. Okay.
That was the guy you ushered right to the front of the class.
Got you.
When I was looking at starting off with, raw recruits, whether it be right out of tech school or whether it be right out of, military was always a good recruiting ground for me. Navy, for whatever reason, the Navy does a great job in teaching the skill set that we really look for. And if they had that skill, whether they had any specific ability on mechanical systems in buildings or not, if they had a mechanical aptitude and they had that burning curiosity in their mind and the ability to innovate and think things through and do diagnostics, we could teach them the mechanical system. Yeah. It's not as though our guys needed to know how to size a pump or choose an air handler or look at the size of a duct and say what's right or wrong. They just need to know the basic fundamentals of thermodynamics, how
right.
pumps work, how compressors work, what a chiller does, what will make a chiller not work, what will make a pump not work, and be able to do those things. But they have to have that overall, they have to have that broad-based knowledge.
Right.
Period.
Now, Jason, before you answer, I need to know, is it true that that you were born with an iPhone in your hand and that you were you learned to program DOS before you could speak? Is there any truth to that rumor?
I think that's false, but I followed a couple years after the personal computer there. So I agree with everything that Leroy said there with looking for people that have that aptitude to learn and move forward and everything. One of the things that we really push forward now is like JavaScript and networking basics and stuff like that. And we've actually found some good technical high schools and stuff like that are teaching that at the high school level, as well as colleges teaching in mechatronics, and where they actually teach a little bit of pneumatic control, robot programming and stuff like that. So we have to actually go out and entice these kids and young adults to come into our industry, because looking at it from the outside, it's not sexy, right? You gotta intrigue them that playing with HVAC systems and stuff like that is fun. And that's where integrating to the lighting controls and IoT devices like Nest thermostats and stuff like that really starts to intrigue them, and showing the interactions of color change lights and stuff. So I find we're really having to sell to these new people coming into our industry.
That
And
hasn't changed.
yeah,
Well,
and
no, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'll piggyback off what you're saying.
yeah, and it's really that programming foundation, not necessarily line based, or it's JavaScript and HTML and stuff like that, where we're really finding great success with, because we're not necessarily having to teach now that HVAC side, because we rely on analytics and predictive maintenance algorithms that are written by basically, those Navy veterans that have a data science degree or something like that to write that logic, and then we can teach our members or team members to diagnose that from the analytical fault out, and really troubleshoot that way.
Well, it's exciting to hear all this because, like Leroy, that was a great summary of the human characteristics. The intuition, that innate desire to see how things work. The mechanical side of things. To explore, and I think that's reflecting on some of our education. Socially. From the grade school, high school level, where other countries introduce mechanical engineering at a much earlier point in people's lives. But not to go too deep into it, but we've actually seen some really exciting response to the young guns and Jason, automated building, Ken St. Clair. Everybody's developing a program to get young people to take a look at our industry, because just to kind of cap things off, we had a marvelous study done by Renee Joseph, where it was 2016, so it might be getting a little bit dated, but the HVAC industry was the fastest growing industry in North America. We were at growing fracking and all the coal, the gas and oil industries, and yet we had this problem where in the year 2024, 60% of the existing HVAC technical reps, customer service, sales engineers are going to retire. And so closing this gap, just kind of an aside on when we have these skills gaps and we have these issues of the scarcity of people that have this ability to make into great MSIs, what are the tools we have available to either, if we don't have people to do it, how are we going to fill that gap? And do you think that what are your ideas on how we can get the industry more sexy?
We're going to have to rely on technology to fill that gap, right? We're going to have to rely on analytics to do our fault diagnostics, because you can't sit somebody in front of a PC and in that 64-story building take a look at 50,000 data points now, right? We let the analytics do that for us, and then we go after the faults that come out to us, right? So using the labor more efficiently, since we are going to have a labor shortage, and using it more efficiently across the whole spectrum, not only in the controls industry, but also in the maintenance facilities industry as well, right? So being able to run a facility now with 30% less standard from the BOMA standard, right? By integrating multiple buildings and multiple portfolios into command center style situations, right? So it's leaning on, again, bringing that technology back to that OT network, whether it's a Johnson, Honeywell, Siemens system, and creating that single interface. So now that can be monitored or controlled from that command center environment.
Great answer.
It's all about becoming more and more efficient with our time and our technology.
Leroy, what would you add to that?
Well, yeah, that's a great point, and Jason, it's spot on. When you get to the operations side of these systems that we're putting in, there's no question but what we can let's say force multiply the benefit of the smart people that put the analytics together, and so one really bright group of engineers can create some rules-based analytics or some fault detection diagnostic routines that can be replicated many, many times, and thereby you can actually create some velocity and some bandwidth to serve a lot of customers. The component that I see that we still really need to focus on as an industry is that we've got to have those people that are ready to, they're fit for duty at the base level to come in and begin installations and to actually begin to configure systems to get them to the point to where they're ready to serve data to analytics, so that those fault detection diagnostic routines and those analytics that we want to use for the operations side are ready. And so one thing that I'll say, in harking back to the old days, you know, there were big companies, the big three or big four, however you want to think about it, with Johnson, Honeywell, Powers, Robert Shaw. This was before Train became prominent, whatever. And those big manufacturers commanded high percentages of total market share for new building construction. And consequently, that gave them a huge platform to create a university within their organizations. And so when I look at the Atlanta marketplace where I grew up, Johnson Controls was very prolific in hiring directly from Georgia Tech and all of the other technical colleges, whether it be in Georgia or neighboring states. And they had a constant recruiting class, and they would bring in multiples of engineers, and those engineers would start out as either applications engineering, basically taking plan specifications and a salesman's estimate and creating a really live building system, or they would be construction representatives where they would take that design system and actually go out and hire subcontractors and direct the field resources to get the systems installed, tested, commissioned, and turned on. But the point there is that they were like a hiring pool, and they created a glut of people in the market that were ready, willing, able, and fit for duty, so that when independent control businesses began to kind of eclipse the factory offices, us independent dealers at that time, which I came up in the Robert Shaw realm. So I was fit for duty around the Robert Shaw brand product whenever it was released through distribution, either through Stromquist or Metro Refrigeration Supply, where I worked at one time. So I was fit for duty as an independent because I learned from the factory how mechanical systems work, how electrical systems work, how elevators work, what a fire alarm interface looks like. If you turn that pump off and turn it right back on, is it going to jump off the pad? I learned those basics about buildings from that. And unfortunately, as time has gone on, and those of us who are born in 1956, which, as a footnote, it's been proven multiple times that being born in 56 is a key to success, because us and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were both born in 56.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we're in rare company.
I'm right about my age now.
Yeah, 56 is an epic year for what we're seeing at the crest of this wave that we're riding still.
Very well said. Very well.
Well, to your point, I think that Eric and I, we marvel over some of the things we've seen in the period of time we've done this Control Trends and watched that grow. It's been a treat to really see technology just go off the leash and become announced in this year, and then actually deployed in this year, and actually see it in buildings in this year. It's incredibly fast now, and it's likely to get faster.
What is, and sort of along those lines, Leroy, one of the trends that Kenny and I've been tracking, because again, coming up in 56, it was like, you knew who your friends were, you knew who your competitors were, and never would the two meet, right? And Jason, I'm going to sort of guide back to you again, because I think what's happened is, to adapt and stay relevant, you have to maybe compete one day and partner the next day. And Jason, you guys, your company, Hepta Systems, has the ability to do, all the integration from the temperature control side up. Mm-hmm. But what you guys sort of have really done is you've kind of, because you guys have a national footprint, probably global by now, but you guys have a unique skill set, because you're hiring and nurturing and getting these people that have a unique skill set to be able to bring these systems together. And I know you've worked with some of our clients where they've come in and we want to do the basic building automation controls, but they need an analytics interface. They need to be able to make the analytics work. They'd be able to bring these diverse systems together. And you guys sort of operate behind the scenes, right, doing a very specific part. But again, people that you might have in the past competed against, now you're partnering with. So talk about your business model in that regard.
Yes. So the major issue is bringing on staffing for these new technologies and stuff. So that's where we partner with system integrators, and we'll be their kind of behind the scenes support for if it's analytics or integrated dashboarding or interfaces for lighting, haystack tagging, stuff like that. And we do that out of our command center style atmosphere, right? So if you need to ramp up personnel for a job, we do that through the panel shop, and we offer basically any services that you're looking for.
Well, hang on real quick. Tell them what the panel shop, because Leroy,
Sure.
this is a really cool piece. I'm not sure whether Leroy, you know about this or not, but this is a really awesome function. Tell them about exactly what the panel shop does and why that's important.
Sure. So like Leroy, you mentioned installation and installation standards. At the panel shop, it's a UL 508A shop where we'll actually supply parts and smarts out to system integrators and control companies out there. So if it basically, if you have a job of say 50 VAV boxes, we'll pre-program, bag and tag them, basically giving you that IKEA set of instructions. So, and have each and every little screw that's required to install, simplify it right down to what tools are required, and give you a map of exactly where that zone is supposed to be located, all in that bag. So now your requirement for ramping up an installation tech is, if you can't hand that bag to say to my wife and say, here, go install this, we haven't done our job properly. And we do that all the way through to tritium panels, Niagara panels, KMC, basically any brand that anybody's looking for.
Yeah, and let me hop in here real quick before the Honeywell and Johnson and Siemens and Linkspring channel managers fall off their chairs. They'll work that through your local distributor. So they're not bypassing the channel. They're working within the channel. So for you distributors out there, if you have not reached out to Jason and Ted at the panel shop, you want them to know who you are, because they will work that back through you. They're not interested in bypassing distribution or the existing channels. They're interested in complementing it. Correct, Dave?
Well, that was
exactly.
I was trying to, one of my motives was to get to the core subject today, at least in my opinion, is we're closing that gap. Jason did a great job explaining that you can have this command style center that can support you in ways that weren't conceivable. Like Eric, you said, the things that we're seeing to come together now in 2018 is co-opetition, where you can't be all things to all people, but you can share resources for a very purposeful event, a contracted event, and then get it done and get out. The local team stays on and supports it service-wise, so everybody wins. But the customer is getting what they need quicker, faster, and more efficiently. That's really where it's at. But then, so we see the master systems integrator concept, and it's really taken hold now. We're seeing this actually impact our world that we never thought would happen through the change in the specifications. So Leroy and Jason, how do we get the master systems integrator into the fabric of the building, either renovation or certainly in new builds, where you've got this important role that we have people emerging as competent to do that, competent to the branches, like you were saying, Leroy, where you had this incredible organization that had the money and resources to create a university within an organization. And that's really well put, because they used to call them universities, and you'd go to their schools, whether it was Honeywell or Johnson. But so where are we looking at in the immediate future, and then maybe short and long-term future, as far as the MSI and how that is spec'd?
So what we normally see, and with great success, is the MSI is spec'd with a partnership, right? You look for an organization that is a consulting engineer, like in Intelligent Buildings or Leroy's group as well, that can come in and teach the organization about what is available with these technologies, right? Because I think they're specifying it, then also there's a huge teaching aspect of what is out there, what technologies can communicate to each other. How do we deploy this, right? Because you can hand someone a spec, but they still need to learn how to buy that, right? Do you bring on an MSI before your temperature controls and HVAC and everything else get bid out? We suggest yes, because that MSI is going to be responsible for integrating all those technologies, and they should be in that bid vetting process so that they can see, okay, the Lutron lighting, yes, we're going to communicate to it and understand that we require these types of communications and technologies, and we're going to have to tie you into that operational technology network, right? So it really brings the team together and brings those technologies together. So it's got to be that partnership.
Yeah, I agree wholly on that, Jason. Having gone through the lead certification training and become lead certified, I really gained a great appreciation for the concept of a charrette, where all stakeholders get involved very early in the project, sometimes before there's even any ground disturbance at all on a new project. And the idea there is to say, what is it that we want to do? And then once the overall vision is articulated, and then whether that be by the developer, the owner, or a combination, then basically we sat down and say, all right, well, what are those components that we want to pull together, and what do we want to achieve with that integration? So I agree with that whole. And what I'm really encouraged by these days is I'm seeing a whole new generation of specifiers come forward, and there's some are embedded within the old, tried and true specifying engineering firm that we've all known for years and years and years. And they've got some young guns that have come in and really they've kind of understood the technology and what their customers are looking for. And with that being said, they've actually developed within their own practice some really building intelligent, savvy people that are driving forward. And one that comes to mind here in Atlanta is Newcomb and Boyd Engineers. And they've got a great young gun, a guy that I have had a lot of respect for many years, Donnie Walker, who does a great job leading that building technology group.
Absolutely.
In that firm. And Newcomb and Boyd is long-term, old school. They've been around, and their military background is huge as far as bases and those types of things. But basically, they're retraining themselves to understand that smart technologies are the wave of the future. And so you're right about that. And the opportunity that I look for and have benefited from time and again is working with those people who are either, I don't know where they are on their continuum as far as whether they're just beginning that practice within their practice, or if they're actually fully engaged and need a little bit more input as far as what's possible. Then I can engage with those, and I have engaged with those. The thing that's kind of held me, and Eric will attest to this, is technology for technology's sake has not really ever been one of my forte. Just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it.
Yeah.
Because often the products that we see are very enticing. They got a lot of chrome, and they got a lot of sparkle and sizzle, and they look really good. But when it comes right down to it, what problem are we trying to solve, or what purpose do they actually serve? And then once we can really assess that and come to a pragmatic conclusion about what's beneficial, then I think that's the correct application of technology. And
I want to hop in on this, because I think you're so right, Leroy. Because again, us 56ers, it's not that we haven't seen change in our industry, but for the last several years, and I think going forward, it's the rate of change is just off the charts. I think the biggest headwind we have, in terms of getting these people to adopt the new standards, is it's too many choices. So they really need somebody that is brand agnostic, like, Leroy, your company, or Intelligent Buildings. There are a bunch of them that can sit down and sort of sort through the flashy stuff, get to the core of what you really want to do. And that's where I think it's critical to have somebody that can, take a calm second look, a pause, and say, okay, yeah, this is cool, or whatever, that doesn't necessarily have a dog in the hunt. And this is where I think roles like, Leroy, your company comes in. I think, Hepta, you guys have been brand agnostic. I mean, much to the chagrin of the major manufacturers. That's another shift we've seen, because the major manufacturers, they want their distributors and their branches just selling their products. And quite often those might be the best solutions. Sometimes they're not. Yeah. But again, I think what our experience is, what owners and consultants are looking for is somebody to come in and talk about the virtues, the pros and cons of each individual system. So that's a huge shift we're seeing.
Well, the biggest frustration, Eric, that I had, and Ken, in your businesses, is that you have a lot of product in your inventory, and you have a lot of choices on your shelf. And the biggest challenge that I always had when I was in that role selling for the Metro refrigeration supply in Atlanta was, when faced with too many choices, people choose not to choose. And so it's really important for you to become the consultant to look at those products and really make some value-based decisions so that you can talk about feature benefit and help them eliminate. And ultimately what you're doing is guiding them to the best value solution based upon your assessment and based upon your understanding of their need.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, let's face it. I mean, when you look at the last, say, 4 to 6 years and the trends that we've tracked, you know, and again, we'll start the buzzwords with IoT, and then we're in the age of disruption. You know, we've got edge devices, we've got cloud, fog, you know, and edge now. I mean, the reality is that you need a person to rely on. And to Eric's point, he constantly we redefine what a distributor does in this especially a two-step distributor. Is becoming more and more of a filter process for, like Ed Merwin said in a previous Control Talk now, that, you know, they need a partner that can do all that, you know, keep on top of technologies, have a good, better, best solutions, because everybody has a different budget structure. Right. Everybody's concerned about return on investment. Some people, you know, are in that, unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are actually in like, you know, they're in the final stages of their career, and the last thing they want to do is get involved in some kind of a project that's going to make their last 4 or 5 years of their professional careers misery, you know? So, I mean, so we really have some headwinds, but I think ultimately we're seeing the, you know, the release of information. We're in a permissionless society now. You want to find out about something, you go on the internet. Nobody can handcuff you anymore. Nobody can create a barrier of entry that you can't get around, more or less. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, there's still barriers. And to your point previously, Leroy, where people had to have access to software tools, and those software tools were guarded very, very carefully, and they were proprietary. And it was very difficult for a technician to get access to them unless they joined a team of some sort to get, you know, to actually get to play with tools that did building automation. So we're seeing some of this stuff released. But I think to the next transition point is that we have big points of dissemination. We have events that occur where the users come to a setting, and they say, this is what we need, this is what we want, and then basically leave it up to us as an industry to get the services they want. They want their buildings efficient as possible. And of course, now the big 300 metric, where you got to keep people as productive as possible, as healthy as possible. You know, just get us there, and then we'll find out a way, you know, how we're going to pay for it, how we're going to, you know, how we're going to finance this transition to get the building where we want, because we have an event coming up that I'm trying not to be too heavy-handed on it, that we want to talk about.
No, hey, you got to talk about this event, because if you want to get all the answers, and I do it. Let's let Jason, and because Jason, I think you guys are going to be there. You guys are going to have a booth, and Leroy, I think you're going to be there too. Tell them about this event that it's the Mecca, man. It's like going to the holy land of technology, right?
Yeah, it's the who's who of technology and real estate. The Realcomm IBCon event coming up. I think it's June. June, is it, Eric?
First week,
Yep.
first week.
Yeah. Yep.
Wait.
It's the who's who of the industry and what is going on in the industry, and the bleeding edge technology and the proven technology. It's great. There's case study events of people that have deployed these great real estate technologies and proven that they can be deployed throughout the industry. Really great event. Jim and Howard are leaders in the industry, and by far, if you have a corporation or building or portfolio or company that's industry interested in the smart building IoT technology, this is an event and that can't be missed.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I've been working with the Realcomm team now for about the last 3 years. This year, they've asked me to actually host the pre-conference event, which is a Smart Building Integrator Summit. I'll be doing that along with Brian Oswald and Scott
Cochran.
Scott Cochran, right. The three of us will be hosting that. We put together a preliminary agenda, and our focus this year on the Smart Building Integrator Summit, which, by the way, is intended as a private conversation among integrators to talk about the challenges that the industry faces, and then to propose possible solutions, and then kind of talk about what's working and what's not working. But we put together an agenda that really focuses on the 3 things or 4 things we've talked about: technology and the arms race as it relates to new, faster, glitzier boxes. And then we're also going to talk about the business challenges that are being thrust upon the industry from the cybersecurity perspective, and how it's basically changing our approach in the marketplace to how we use, connected systems in buildings, and what are the pratfalls that we could fall into, and how do we kind of navigate through the minefield of legal liabilities and cyber issues and all that type of thing. And then the other is continuing the conversation we really began last year, and that is the talent acquisition and talent retention. Jason, you brought up a great point. How do we sell to these potential newcomers to the industry the fact that, it's not like going to San Francisco and being in a .com, but the reality of it is that if you have a desire to serve fellow humans and make their life better, then we do have to make sure that they know that building automation, systems integration is a really viable long term. I mean, I'm living proof. I started in 1978, and I was able to retire very comfortably. And from what Eric points out, it was a great business and a great company over the years. In a 30-plus year career, I mean, it's never got threatened to be laid off. Never without work. It was always very stable, and it was always high paying. It was always an industry that gave me a lot of reward from a financial perspective as well as a professional perspective. So that's what we're going to be talking about a lot in the Smart Building Integrators Summit, but also, as Jason points out, Realcomm, and then the IBCon, the Intelligent Building Conference, very much focuses around those leading edge type technology, but also the tried and true standard blocking and tackling type things that every building owner, there. And what's really key about it is that, as Jason points out again, everyone, that is anybody having to do with any commercial real estate, or really, I've met people there from multifamily industry, from institutional, the college, university, governmental people there. Anybody in properties, in real properties, non-residential, are going to be there. Your customers are probably going to be there. And so if you're not there to greet them and help usher them through, you're going to miss the chance.
I tell you what, Lou, I could not agree more. And I'll break it down even further. It's a little bit like if most of the conferences you go to, it's like if you want to go to a conference on, how to meet and be successful with women, right? And most of the conferences, like you go to one of those and it's a bunch of guys. Realcomm IBCon is like you're going to that conference and there are women there too.
And they're real people, they know.
They are. But where else can you go and hear firsthand from the people, your customers, meaning the real estate people, what their concerns are? The key decision makers are there. They're talking about what's important to them. You can meet them, you can rub elbows with them. Then you hear about the technology trends that are going on. Then you can go to a product showcase and see the great products that are. It is like
the diversity of companies, the diversity of participants, the new ideas, the media coverage that the event gets. I mean, you guys have done a great job covering the event over the years, and always been very grateful for that. But there are, writers, people from all technical journals are there, and people are strolling the floor looking for intelligent people who can help them with integrations. But there are also some manufacturers there who have some ideas for new product that they don't mind pulling you aside and talking to you one-on-one about, this is what we're thinking, what do you think, and how will it be? So it definitely is the industry event.
What it is, and Jason, real quick, you guys have a booth there. What will you be showing at your booth?
We're going to be showing our master systems integration capabilities with integrating every facet of a system into a single platform, right from lighting, HVAC, metering, elevators, irrigation, as well as the capability of putting analytics on that platform with full command and control all in one single pane. As well, we'll have our panel shop with product present at Cyber Power with their new UPS, panel mount UPS. Great little product. It'll be a great show. If you're higher ed or corporate real estate and you have any operational issues or hiccups and you can't walk that floor and find a solution, you gotta just open your eyes.
Industry. You need to become a game show host.
That's right, because there are solutions there. There are solution providers there, and if you don't come home with a solution at the end of the day, then
But
you spend too much
in
time by the
Vegas.
pool.
Yeah, and it's in Vegas at the Cosmopolitan, and Ken Smyers is fond of saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what you learn in Vegas, you get to bring home and use, right?
Here.
We hope
Kenny,
so.
I got a final question, but do you have one before we wrap
Well,
up?
I just wanted to do the summary here because that's a great point to kind of let everybody know. We're talking about RealCom, IBCom. Like Leroy said, there's several events, but you have the pre-con event that starts June 5th, and then afterwards you have an Innovation Tech Tour that's June 8th. And it's June 6th through the 7th, 2018 at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. And what the theme is, I've read some backstory on this, is that the theme for 2018 was driven by the word speed. Well, technology and change has been fast, whatever. So basically the theme of this is the age of acceleration. And you talk about Jim Young and Howard Berger coming up every year with something very important. The emphasis that they're saying is with technology and with everything Jason said, if you need a solution, instead of programming it for a quarter next, fourth quarter 2018, you go to this place, you can actually come back. See, I think sometimes the transition that people have is that they go to a great event, but they don't really bring back anything to share with the organization, and they no tangible improvements, But this is a conference where you can go and you can actually meet a solution, bring it back, and have impetus and have the motivation and have the backstory to implement it and quickly by having networked enough to get the partners in your area, and because that's what this is. This is a giant network fest, and it's the top people in the industry.
Well said. Well said. Well, guys, listen, I'm going to give you guys both a chance to let our audience know how to get hold of you. But as a final question, Jason, Leroy, you have been hired by the big 3 or 4 controls manufacturers, the ones that really created the industry. Okay. And they've hired you to basically give them advice on what they need to do. What are you telling them in terms of what mistakes are you possibly making, and what do you need to do to go forward and participate in this next boon that's coming along?
Oh my goodness, Jason, you want to take it first, or?
Hot potato.
Well, you're one of the few people I can ask this question to, because Kenny and I can't say anything because we sell them all.
Yeah.
But Jason, you're brand agnostic, and Leroy, you're a consultant, so
Absolutely.
you're their customers.
Yeah.
If it's the big 3, I have to say, on the message of Jim Young and Howard for this year is speed. You got to be fast. It's not the Siemens or Honeywell or Johnson that's going to run over one of each other. It's going to be the Google, the Amazon, somebody that moves so quickly and has a dive into technology that's going to come out of left field with this great widget that is going to revolutionize our industry. That's what we have to be worried about, right?
Agreed.
We have to look at the way we've done things for 30 plus years and say, okay, let's open our minds up that there is a different way to do this, right? Because if we keep moving in the direction that we have been for the last 30, we're going to be sitting in the same spot 20 years from now, and the name Honeywell or Johnson or Siemens or whatever, it'll be in the history books, and everybody will just know this Nest thermostat or something like that, right? So it's having an awareness of that.
That's pretty powerful. Yep.
Yeah, very powerful. Leroy?
What I would say, and I'll say that there's an inertia built into those big companies that's very difficult for them to overcome. When you look at large installed bases and you look at the lineage of the systems that they have out there, the last thing they want to do is to leave an existing customer behind when they move forward with the technical innovation that is potentially game changing. And that's happened over the years. I mean, I can remember many Honeywell systems that were completed based upon the current technology when the building was begun, and immediately the product was obsolete when they turned the building over because of the rapid advancement of technology in the late 80s, early 90s. They learned a lot of lessons about that because essentially they had customers that got marooned. But the reality of it is that it is time for speed. It is time for increased velocity. And my frustration continues to be that I'm not seeing a full-on embracing of the predominant internet technologies. And, you know, it should be, if I have a question about something in my building, I should be able to go to Google, which we all know how to use, and I should be able to go into the search bar and say, what's the average temperature for the top 4 floors of my building today? And you should be able to get it to regurgitate, or even better, ask Alexa and have Alexa tell you what's going on. And there's some people who are making some moves in that regard, but to really fully embrace the technology where you could literally configure a building system based upon open technology products that you could buy from, let's say, Stromquist, a company, or Ken, your company, that are non-licensed type products that you could go out and confidently configure a really, you know, high-performance building automation system and an integrated platform using nothing more than a web browser and the standard tools that are available, the Google or those types of things that we all know and we just take for granted in computers. But again, the big three, if I'm hired by the big three, they need to be embracing that more fully, because that's really where the young talent is coming from. That's where the young talent wants it to be. And from the perspective of an experiential type system, which is more and more what clients are looking for. We want to feel good about the place we work, and we want to be able to feel happy at the end of the day. Well, you need to be more embracing of those more current internet technologies.
Well, I want to add on to that too, because I think that in disclaimer, I feed my children by selling primarily the big three. Okay. Yep. So, and what I would say is the big three is rock solid. Leroy, you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of people that come and go, but the big three to me is kind of like, you know, they will get the technology, maybe not at the speed that some of us want them to, but they're safe and that they're going to be around, especially if they continue to adopt the technology. But what I would say their biggest risk is you have to stay relevant, and to stay relevant, you have to be visible. You don't necessarily have to have new products coming out all the time, but you better be the voice of the industry that's helping shape the future. And for guys like me and Leroy, I suspect you too, I mean, if you're not showing up at events like Realcomm IBCon, it's very difficult for me to have a conversation, go, well, what about the big three? Well, they're not showing up at these events that are where the people that are showing up are influencing the real estate owners, and the real estate owners are telling the people that are there what they want. So I think to stay relevant, you have to at the very least stay visible. And one of the best places to stay visible to me is Realcomm IBCon.
Well said.
All right, guys. Well, listen, can't tell you how much I appreciate having you guys on. What a great conversation we've had today. Leroy, how do folks get hold of you if they want to inquire about your services?
First of all, I wish everybody happy St. Patty's Day.
That's right. That's right. Happy St. Patty's.
We have a good Irish whiskey later on today to celebrate.
Good boy.
Basically, to get hold of me, you could reach out to leroy.walden at highroseconsultants.com. And that's Higrose, HIGHROSE, consultants.com. You can also reach out, if phone numbers work better for you, 678-761-0498.
And just tell them Ken and Eric sent you.
Ken and Eric, yeah, that's right. Get it.
All right, Mr. Jason, how do people get hold of you? I know you got two different places they can get hold of you, one in the panel shop and one Hepta Systems.
Yep, the easiest way is jc.houck, HOUCK, at heptasystems.com, or jc.houck at the panel shop, spelled SHOPPE.com. And any of those will get a hold of me. And if they are old fashioned, like the panel we have today, Kenny and Eric, 810-956-2600.
Right, and I tell you, if you employ Leroy's services, you might get a chance to go to his mountain abode. Leroy's put a screenshot up. What a view, buddy! What a view! That's what you look at every morning now, huh?
That's live right now.
All right, there you go, buddy. Well, listen, you can catch up with these two characters at Realcomm IBCon. Still time to sign up. Remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What you learn in Vegas, they come and make money off of. So, thanks, fellas. Appreciate you a lot.
All right, see you guys.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
Wow, Kenny, was that fun or what?
Well, Eric, it's a benefit of, doing what we like to do here because we certainly just our conversation was enriching, and to see the perspective of such a young, talented person, and then the senior advice and wisdom of somebody like Leroy Walden, who has all those years of experience, started at the ground level. It's watched DDC, the first, deployments of it, and to see the industry evolve as it has so successfully. And then for him to make that great statement about it's been a very nice, it's been very rewarding for him to work in this industry.
Yeah.
I think it's true for all of us. If you apply yourself in this industry, there are great rewards, and it's a very consistent, loyal, calling. In other words, there's never heating and cooling and building automation and control of lighting is never going away unless
It's never going to be boring either, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get the robots to put it in and hang lights and do stuff like that, then yeah, maybe it's a checkmate. But more than likely, technicians are going to be always need in a great opportunity, and we hope that we're helping to shape and bring a positive attention to our industry and getting the attention from the people that really matter and can change the mechanics to get better results. Has to start early. Has to start real early.
And like we're fond of saying too, I mean, if you're a younger person out there who cares about the environment, it's one of the few industries you can come in and have a direct impact on the environment. And not only that, have the documentation through data to back it up. So it's a fantastic fantastic industry. You're not going to be hindered to a cubicle farm. It's always changing, and there's a big need in our industry. So we invite you to come in to our industry. And Kenny, I tell you what, let's give a couple posts. Let's get it done. Let's get out of here because it's St. Patrick's Day, and you got to go do some drinking.
Well, that Irish malt thing that Leroy, he got me thinking about that. There's nothing wrong with a good Irish, what do you call it, single malt. He's going to go have a celebrate St. Patrick's with a single malt.
There you go. That's our,
again, our industry is not sleeping, it's not stopping. We have a new product release from LinkSpring. It's their 7-inch HD touchscreen display. And LinkSpring is really excited about the new products they're bringing to market. This is the 7-inch touchscreen display that's available now, and it has a wide range of use in the HVAC lighting, energy commissioning, troubleshooting, and servicing. For the IoT user experience. So it's intuitive, it's easy to use, and it's been priced to match the economics for use in small building environments and multiple display points for larger environments. So well done, LinkSpring.
Well, and I tell you, I want to do a shout out because I think some of the unsung heroes in our industry, and we talk about it now more than ever, that the messaging is so critical. So I want to do a shout out to Mark Peacock, who is their vice president of communication and marketing. And, Mark is just doing a marvelous job for LinkSpring. I mean, we see the stuff he puts out every week, the consistency with that, the messaging, the sort of voice of customer, hearing what the products are and putting it together. Marvelous job by Mark Peacock. He's one of the unsung heroes in our industry. And the only thing Mark doesn't do right, Kenny, he doesn't come on our damn show enough. So Mark Peacock, if you're listening, get your butt on this show. And sort of along those lines, you got some other greats like, Lisa Hickey at Belimo and what's the gentleman's name at Honeywell? Really good guy. Mark at Honeywell does a fantastic job. And of course, JCI's got their great people. But I think, Brian, every great company, there's a great marketing person. So I give a shout out to all the marketing people in our industry for the great job you're doing.
Hear, 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 hear.
Please forward our post, marketing folks, because you know how important that is.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, you got it. All right, so Mark Peacock, we want you on the show, and we're not taking no for an answer.
Well, we'll beat him up with emails.
Yeah, he's doing his. I think he's doing his Odell Beckham imitation here, man. Just laying back, being cool, waiting for the multi-million-dollar contract. We want you, Mark. You got a lot to say. Come on the show.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. Well, the next post we had up, Eric, was the Contemporary Controls bids you a happy National Pie Day. And so in honor of National Pie Day, Contemporary Controls celebrated the Raspberry Pi, which was recently created by their...
You're not talking about like a strawberry pie. You're talking about you're talking about a piece of technology. It's not that you're just George Thomas Lake Seed Pie then.
Well, I tell you, if you go into the to our site and you go into this this post, it's really cool because Contemporary Controls has integrated the Raspberry Pi into their. They've taken Contemporary Controls number one, they support the use of the vision of using open hardware and software. Of course, the Raspberry Pi is open hardware and software. So, and it's accessible to everyone. They believe the technology now is going to really take off, and as IoT becomes more of an aspect for younger people. But they believe as part of our vision for open control, we've created the BAS Pi IO board for Raspberry Pi, which turns your Raspberry Pi into a backnet networked device that's Sedona programmable as a controller with 6 universal inputs and relay outputs. And guess what I bought based on Contemporary Controls, the article that we posted. I turned around and I bought myself a Raspberry Pi kit.
You got a Raspberry Pi. Awesome, Kenny. Awesome.
And I'm going to screw around with it. And I've heard so much about these things, and so much about it, but here it is. Here's the magic dog right here.
Nice.
And, I'll let you know if but it's so easy. It's a kit and it's designed, the concept came out of the UK. The original goal of the UK-based Raspberry Pi Foundation was to create a device that would address their perceptions of falling standards in the teaching of computer sciences. As computers have evolved, they've become more difficult to write software for on a low level. And basically it's expensive. So they figured if they put together some technology and made it accessible, the whole world would benefit. So that's the kind of utilitarianism that the world benefits by, because getting young people involved in technology at an early age can only mean good things for those people. They learn those skills, and it comes with a nice little startup guide. So it doesn't take much to get it online, get it on board.
Very cool, Kenny. Very cool. Well, listen, I just got a text from Barry Flash Gordon from ACI. ACI makes all kinds of sensors, and Barry's question is, would you like some sensors with that Pi, sir?
Barry, how you doing? He put a post on LinkedIn too here this week, and his Irish name for St. Patty's Day is Barry McGordon.
Barry McGordon. Wow.
He's Barry McGordon, and he's going to he's celebrating St. Patrick's up in Wisconsin, and it's fun.
Barry's a good guy, man.
You gotta have events on the calendar to make life exciting. Because I tell you what, if you're living in the Northeast here, those poor guys up there, John Donahue and those boys are getting plastered again, I think, by a nor'eastern. It's been a very challenging winter. How about you down in Georgia? Just give us a quick 2-second. What's the weather like down there in Georgia?
It's a little hot outside. I'm having to stay inside with the air conditioning on because it's a little hot. I might go out with my shorts on and my white
an undershirt. It's the first time you had an undershirt on in a long while. It's because it's chilly down there too, isn't it?
I'm just kidding. It's not bad. It's not bad. We're getting there, brother. We're getting to come visit, man. Come down and visit.
You know what? I got to get out of here one way or the other. But we've got something coming up here, and we got one of our final posts that's going to get me into that warmer weather, that temperate zone down there.
Yeah. Big meeting coming up. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, let's go to your post here first. And the reason why I want to do that is because this brings back just some of the fondest memories I've had of our time together in Control Trends. And
all you need is love.
There you go. The Beatles thing. So you put a post up across the universe with Ken and Eric, and then what we have is you've made an analogy that saw a wonderful movie, and it's a revolutionary rock musical that reimagines America in the turbulent 60s. It features 34 compositions originally written by members of the Beatles. And so we had and of course we did our how the Beatles are influencing the smart building controls renaissance, and that's where we visited. We put feet on the street in Liverpool. We walked the John Lennon birthplace. We walked Strawberry Fields. We went to John Lennon's house, and then we wound up at the incredible place where the Beatles started. We went to Liverpool and went down into the cavern, and it's just an amazing experience because it had.
So a couple of things, guys, right off the bat. First of all, Kenny knows a ton about the Beatles. So just seeing, getting to walk Liverpool with Kenny and going to all these different locations and Kenny giving us the backstory was phenomenal. But what made me think about it was a movie called All Across the Universe. We saw it, my wife and I saw it a couple of nights ago. And it is literally about the 60s, which was a very interesting time in our history. And it's all Beatles songs. It was all the Beatles songs. Okay. And of course, there's a soft spot in my heart for that. And we're all getting ready to go out to Realcom Ibicon. It's going to be at the Cosmopolitan. If you're out there and if you haven't seen this show, you got to go see Cirque du Soleil, The Beatles Love. It's the only place in the world it plays. Vegas has a great sort of thing for me, and so does the Beatles love, and so does Realcom Ibicon, because the Cosmopolitan Hotel is going to be rocking.
Sure is. In fact, we bounced through our interview there again, but in summary, the June 6th and 7th is the primary Ibicon. However, there's a pre-con event June 5th, and then there's a tech tour June 8th. So all of the people in the business that we're in, that's some great, that's a great investment of time, money, and then of course Las Vegas always. It's just.
What do we say, Kenny, about Vegas? We said it earlier on the show. What do we say about Vegas? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
However, what you learn in Vegas, you bring back to your organizations and you share.
And you make money so you can go back to Vegas again and leave stuff that can't come back home. All right, cool. All right, brother. What we have?
The opportunity to network. So the Niagara Summit 18 calls for entries. The Niagara Innovator Award and the Niagara New Product Showcase. Now, we've seen variations of this in the past, but this is really neat, because what the Niagara community is being offered is a chance to be recognized at the Niagara Summit for your innovative projects and new products. So there's 2 awards: the Innovator Award. Who was the innovator from the Rick Werner? Remember, he was the Terminator, and we had the Innovator.
Right.
Every time I read this, I think of Rick Werner. How you doing, Rick? We haven't had him on the show for a while. Hey, Rick,
you need to get on the show, buddy. Come on, stay relevant.
But the innovation is what the Niagara framework is all about. Everyday Niagara community turns possibilities into realities using a powerful platform. The Niagara Innovator Award offers you a chance to spotlight your projects that exemplify innovation, creativity, and collaboration. And then the second one, the New Product Showcase, basically the same thing. Have you released a new product since Niagara Summit 2016? Well, here's your chance to showcase it at the Niagara community in front of all the Niagara community members, which would be a great opportunity to get your product moving and grooving inside of a very capable and knowledgeable group. But they're giving out some very, very big rewards. And in fact, the reward for winning the Innovator Award is a $5,000 prize.
Nice.
So it says first place finalists will receive a $5,000 cash award and an engraved 2018 Innovator of the Year logo for your print and your web use and promotion, and mentioned in the Tridium's post-summit social media. So if that doesn't get you attention, $5,000 is still a nice piece of change, and probably pay your way to and from the show. So
yeah, absolutely. And if you're not signed up for the show yet, there's still time. That's going to be in April. The man, the myth, the legend, and I are going to be there, as well as other movers and shakers. So you definitely want to sign up for that, Kenny Smyers. That's going to be good stuff. And we're sort of taking a walk down memory lane, and we had the Johnson's Veritas came in, and they did their product showcase in Atlanta this week. They're doing a road show. They're traveling all across the United States. So we have a post up there so you can sort of see where they're coming. So I personally went to that, attended it. It was a marvelous rollout. That's a great product. For those of you who don't know, it's a light commercial solution that has stuff that goes up to the cloud, so you can collect the data. They've really thought this thing out very, very well. It's very price competitive, very easy to configure, and it's really sort of designed for maybe that, not necessarily for a major systems integrator, but for that service contractor that has customers asking him or her for a system. Is something you definitely want to check out. It also comes embedded in the York equipment. So if you're using York equipment, you can just basically, kind of like what Kevin Fasinelli and those guys did at Daikin, you can suck it out and configure it that way too. So it's good stuff there. And boy, I tell you what, that man, it's been another big week on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings Videocast and Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. Hey, if you liked us, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell an enemy. But either way, tell somebody about the show, because we want to get our ratings up. But a special thanks to our guests this week, Leroy Walden from High Rose Consulting and Jason Houck from Hefta Systems and the Panel Shop. So we appreciate those guys. Check them out if you want to. Get a link to both their sites in the show notes. But until then, thank you for tuning in. Remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. For you big three, if you can't be relevant, at least be visible.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed. Kenny Smyers. There you go, brother.
Oh boy, he used to have